Good evening. Welcome to MoHi. Thank you all for coming out today. My name is Rachel Spence, and I am the Public Programs Manager here at MoHi. I'm a white woman with red hair, wearing a plaid dress, and a black mask. Thank you all so much for being here for our panel discussion, Making Waves, A History of Women's Rowing in Seattle. I hope I saw many of you up in the exhibit, got to see pulling together a brief history of rowing in Seattle before. If you didn't get a chance to see the exhibit, we're very excited to announce that it has been extended and it will now be up through August 11th to coincide with the Summer Olympics. Exactly. Yeah, that's worth a round of applause. And a special thank you to many of you in the audience tonight who have lent artifacts and otherwise helped make this exhibit happen. This exhibit tells the story of the boys in the boat and more broadly, the rich history of rowing in Seattle. And it was organized by MoHi in collaboration with the University of Washington, ASUW Shell House, University of Washington Libraries, the Special Collections, University of Washington Rowing, Pocock Rowing Foundation, and the Northwest Maritime Center. As an important orientation to the space, we welcome you to take care of your needs. And so it's important to tell you that the bathrooms are past that tower, down the hallway, and on the left. Also, please get up and move as you need to, and we have drinks available for purchase in the back. As we ground ourselves in space, it's important to begin by acknowledging that here we are on the historic and contemporary lands and waters of the Duwamish, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and all Coast Salish people. Historically, Native communities have been forcefully removed from the city, but today we honored their continued endurance with deep respect and gratitude for their unbroken stewardship of this place. We encourage you to visit the websites of local tribes to learn more about the people whose land you are on. Tonight, we're going to be learning more about the history of women in rowing, and to do that, I first will be introducing you to our moderator, who we're very honored to have. Eric Cohen is a former national champion, varsity coxswain, and captain at Washington. He founded huskycrew.org, wrote the history of Washington rowing, co-founded the Husky Rowing Foundation, and was honored with the Dave and Ruth Cohen Award for UW Athletics. He recently completed the UW Women's Rowing History in conjunction with the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So big round of applause for Eric, who will introduce the rest of our panel.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Okay, first of all, I want to describe what I'm wearing. I am in a powder blue shirt with a beige jacket. I am a white male. I'm 60 years old, in my 60s, I guess I will say. Really pleasure to be here tonight at the Museum of History and Industry. I grew up in the area that was kind of north of Union Bay, and so as a child, my parents brought me to the original Museum of History and Industry. And I have valued it all of my life, and I consider it to be really a cornerstone for history here because it's a physical space. History, so much of history is written. My history is published on the web at WashingtonRowingHistory.org. And it's really awesome. It's really, really neat to be able to have interviews on the web and videos, but it's not the same as having a physical space. And this place is a really wonderful tribute to Seattle and to the people of Seattle. So thank you, MoHi, for having us tonight. All right, I'm going to introduce my panel here. This is going to be really a lot of fun tonight. I wrote the women's history 2 years ago in honor of the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And it was long overdue. I wish we could have gotten it done sooner, and there's a lot to add, and there's people in this audience that I want to talk to and get interviews up on the web, and we will do that in the coming years because it's critically important to hear those voices. To my left is Peg Achterman, class of '82 at the University of Washington with me with her purple jacket on. That's her Hall of Fame jacket. She's in the Hall of Fame at the University of Washington.
Others out there.
Peg was a national champion at Washington in 1981 and 1982. The very first year that we won a national championship in 1981, and we're going to hear from her about what it was like to be in that boat, but also in that era when really a lot of things changed at Washington. Do you want to describe what you're wearing? Just describe yourself.
Oh, sure. I'm Peg Achterman. I am I just turned 64-year-old woman with pretty white hair and a very bright purple jacket and black pants.
Yes, outstanding. She is a professor now at Seattle Pacific University. Next to her is Melanie Barstow, and Melanie is class of 16. Mm-hmm. Melanie, of all of the people on this stage, she is the person I have done the most of these panels with. We've done many together over the last 2 years.
It's such a blast.
Yeah,
I love being here, Eric.
We do. We have a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So what's wonderful about Melanie is that she's young, and she really captures, no kidding.
You going to take that?
She understands the spirit of rowing, and it's just wonderful to see, for someone my age, to see that carry on in younger people. And I think one of the things what makes her special regarding this story is that she is the one who founded the ASUW Shell House Tours. Right, and that tour, she just started it, and within a year it had become the number 5 tour. Yeah, the number 5 tour in the city of Seattle, in the region. Yeah. And she did that because she understood the power of the story of the boys in the boat, and she recognized that we had this place, and she's like, why isn't nobody getting to experience this? Mm-hmm. And so she went out. Am I accurate in this?
Absolutely,
yeah.
And I'll say it was an opportunity that I witnessed, and I thought, if no one else is going to do this, then I might as well give it a shot. And I was a current student athlete, and I was a public health major, and I did not know anything about starting a tour. But I went to my coaches and I said, hey, I have this idea, what do you think? And they're like, yeah, go ahead, we have no time to devote to it, but you can take it and run with it. And that was 8 years ago now. May 2016 was my first tour. I started doing all of them for free, and I told the coaches, I said, if you like it, then you can hire me. And they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo! And tell people what you're wearing.
Okay,
so I am a recently
30
30-year-old white female. I'm wearing
yesterday she turned 30.
Yesterday I turned 30.
Birthday.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I am wearing my Letterman's jacket, and I will say I am humbled to be on this stage with these wonderful individuals that I'm surrounded by. I am not that cool in comparison to Eric and Peg and Anna. I almost got cut twice from the UW rowing team. I was at the very bottom of the team, and I am lucky to have this jacket on because I completed 4 years on the women's team.
Yeah. So let me tell you, when you complete 4 years at Washington, there's a number of things you learn, and one of them is, one of the very first things you learn, and Anna knows this, is to be humble. And Melanie is humble because you can just tell from the way she talks about her experience. What she did, and I think we'll maybe get to this at Washington, is really pretty incredible. So, okay, and she now, I don't think she mentioned this, but she currently works at the University of Washington in advancement for UW Medicine. Mm-hmm. Okay, what department?
Neurological surgery and neurology.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, and then at the far end we have Anna Cummins. She is the most decorated.
I was going to say, by far the most decorated on the stage.
On the stage here. So let me see if I can do this right. So Anna was a freshman in 1999, won NC2A championship in the 4, right? As a freshman. And then as a sophomore, came in second, I think, in the NC2As in the V-boat. Yeah? Yeah, I think that's about the only race she's ever lost in her life, because they then went to Henley that year and won the Henley Prize. And so the Henley Prize at Henley is the women's equivalent of the Grand Challenge Cup. And it was brand new in 2000, I think. Wasn't it pretty much brand new?
The first one, yeah.
Yeah, first one.
For women.
Okay, so...
Yeah, they didn't let us row in Henley.
Yeah, they wouldn't let us, yeah.
So, and to advance to win that race, did you beat Canada and Australia?
I have no idea.
Okay, it was two...
But it was fun.
It was two national teams. And like any collegiate team that wins a race of that caliber, it was a major upset, and still historically one of the biggest wins in our history. And then in 2001, she was back in the varsity boat at the NC2As, won that race, and then also won the points trophy, so the team was national champions because of that win. And then in 2002 was in the varsity 8. The team actually finished second that year, and it's really kind of a strange thing because both the 2V and the 1V won. That was amazing, but that was your senior year. And then immediately jumped to the women's national team, and I think won the world championship in 2002. Is that right? Yeah. And then multiple player on the national team, won a silver medal in the Athens Olympics in 2004. I mean, I could just go through this whole thing. It's unbelievable.
Could take the whole night
2006, let me just say
Anna.
this, because 2006 was really important in that they won the world championships in 2006, but she also set a world record. So all the people in this room, she is a world record holder. And then in 2008, won the gold medal in the Beijing Olympics.
Yep.
Yeah, so, yeah, no kidding. All right.
And on top of that is now a mother to how many?
7
munchkins kids.
So I'm
Which
wearing
is Olympic
my
anyway.
Beijing jacket now. I'm wearing a gray skirt and a Beijing jacket, middle-aged woman now. I was born in 1980 when Peg was graduating. Were you graduating class of 80? Or did you
No,
start
I
80?
was a sophomore.
Sophomore,
but
okay.
yeah.
So close. So the next generation down. And when I retired from rowing, then my husband, also world champion rower from the Huskies, they won in 97. And we started a chiropractic office in Bellevue. And so I worked my way out of that just to be home with the kids. So we've got 6 girls. Yeah. And a boy. And a boy. There's a
6
boy.
girls and a boy.
So
She's busy.
Got her own
Much
team.
harder than winning a gold medal, I think.
Okay, so we have multiple talent up here, and I want to get to all of them, but I first want to ask the crowd here, this is not necessarily specific to women's rowing at Washington or in the region, but I think there's a lot of people here that are here because of this, and I'd like to ask how many people here have read The Boys in the Boat, the book? Yep, there we go. Okay, I expected that, and then how many saw the movie? Okay, so good. This is really good. So we'll have, this is a familiar audience. It's fantastic.
Can we ask how many rowers are in the audience?
Yeah, how many
how many
rowers?
rowers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay,
You
outstanding.
can fact check us.
Nice.
Yeah.
Keep us honest.
Okay, so first question to my panel is, what was the journey that got you to Washington? I'm going to start with you, Peg. How did you end up on the rowing team at Washington?
Well, I didn't spend all 4 years on the rowing team. I started out as a walk-on to the track and field team throwing discus and shot put. And I was really, really fortunate to work with a guy named Ken Shannon, who was coaching the men but believed in women. So I wasn't shot down at all. But I used to stand when Husky Stadium was open-ended at the Horseshoe, and before the Dempsey Center was built, we worked out at the open end of the stadium. And I had a sorority sister who was a rower, and I used to watch the boats go by and go, that looks like more fun. Because I was a shot and discus thrower, I spent a lot of time in the basement of the Tubby Graves building, which is where the weight room was. And I took some joy when the guys would follow me and have to move the pin to a lighter weight. But it wasn't enough joy to keep me throwing shot put and discus. So I watched the boats and went, looks like more fun. Little did I know how hard I would work, but I switched to rowing in my sophomore year. So that's how I got started with rowing.
Okay, great, super. Melanie?
So I was similar to Peg in the sense that the first time I ever saw rowing, keep in mind I grew up in Redmond, Washington, and I've never left because I love Seattle. The first time that I saw rowing, I was a sophomore in high school, and my mom, at the time, her birthday always falls on Windermere Cup or opening day weekend. And so my mom saw the article in the Seattle Times, and she said, we have to go watch the Windermere Cup. And I said, Mom, it's 10 a.m. on a Saturday. That's way too early. I'm like, I gotta sleep in until 12. And nonetheless, we got in this huge family fight. And this is a little embarrassing to admit, but I have an identical twin sister. And she and I were both on the UW rowing team together all 4 years. But we went to the Montlake Cut to watch the opening day races. And she and I stood on one side of the cut, and my parents stood on the other side of the cut. And we were like, between races, we were like glaring at each other. It was really fun. But I saw rowing for the first time, and I was mesmerized by the beauty of it. And coming from volleyball and track and field and basketball, I thought, oh, this looks so much easier and so much prettier. And all of you know it's probably the hardest sport you've ever done. So
It's pretty from a long ways away.
It is. It absolutely is. But I tried rowing as a junior in high school at Sammamish Rowing Association. Woo! And that was 2 years, and 4 months into my high school rowing experience, I got a call from the head coach at UW, Bob Ernst. And he said, I saw you at practice the other day. Are you interested in being a Husky? And I think I almost dropped dead. I never in any part of my being did I expect to row for the Huskies. I'm a 4th generation Husky. It's in my family blood to go to UW, but none of us have ever been athletes. So it was an opportunity that I couldn't say no to, but I had no idea how storied this program was until I stepped foot in the Erg Bay, and then I got humbled very quickly.
What year was that?
That was 2012. Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, Anna.
Yeah. Well, similar to you guys and a lot of people around is that somebody takes notice of you and then you think, oh, okay, I'll try to give that a shot. And so for me, I was a track and cross country and basketball athlete at Newport High School in Bellevue. That's where I grew up. And grew up in a track family and came to the University of Washington to see if I could be on the track team. My brother and my sister-in-law were both competing on the team, so I went for a little visit, kind of worked my way in to get a visit. And when I visited the team, these gals were much smaller than I was and a little slender. And so when I visited the team, it was like, this probably wasn't the best fit, and I wasn't invited to like, would you like to be a Husky by the current track coach. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll go visit the rowing team, which had been looking at the girls on the basketball team in the local area. If anybody had gotten picked up by the Huskies, they're always looking for their hometown hero program. And so I fit that bill. Like, you're good at basketball, but you're not going to play in college. You're a good runner, but not that good. And you're tall enough and a team captain. So I came and I visited the program. And on my recruiting visit, the gals, we walked back up to the hub, and I'd had a bagel and cream cheese, because that's what everybody did back in the late 90s. And the girls on the rowing team were like, is that all you're going to eat? And I was like, oh, I love you people. So
I get to eat as much as I want.
this is the best. I love this sport already. But I didn't know the boat. I didn't know you went backwards. I didn't know anything because I had done track, and the races always conflict. So it was a real eye-opener once we got the ball rolling. But there was a woman who's now athletic director at UW. Erin O'Connell was assistant coach, and she said, I think you could go all the way. Like, she looked at me, and I was just looking like most women, like you want to be wanted somehow. Either it's a friendship or a coach. Women's rowing, I think there's a lot of that relationship balance that comes through women's rowing, and to have her say, I think you can do this, like that. I want you to come. I felt wanted and needed. Therefore, I'm going to leave my past identity as rower as runner, and try this new thing, which was a hard jump, and then jumped all in. And man, she was right.
Yeah, she was right.
So when was it that you recognized that this was maybe your sport? Like, at what point in time in your freshman year? Clearly, at some point in time, do you remember when that was?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I was a miler, and so running the mile is very similar to doing a 2,000-meter piece, 4x500, 4x400. I knew all the training. I just didn't know how to row, like, at all. So the ergometer scores, my first ergometer scores were some of the fastest in the country for a freshman. So Eleanor McIlvain was my coach, and she was like, yes, but little did she know she actually had to teach me how to row. So that was rough. But I knew I was good because I was getting the numbers, so I was getting the invites to go to the national team camp and whatnot. So
Okay, but that was like, okay, so I'm talking about October, November, December. Because
Feels like
I can
October.
tell that
When you
story.
start.
For me, like I really didn't. It was when we won the fall head race. Was when I first thought to myself, man, maybe I can do this. Like maybe I have a shot at this.
right.
When was that for you?
I think there was a women's learn to row, like a women's, was it like a learn to row day or a women in sport day that the Huskies used to do? Bob Ernst put it on, and he brought some amazing Olympians from 1984. We have one in the audience.
Yeah, one is
They
here.
brought their gold medals, and I got to see that and walk around and see how it worked and sit in a boat and, you know, kind of help with that. And I think that was seeing what the next level might look like made it a real possibility. We talk about the physical space of the Mohai. There's power in like the physical being of things. So to see real women with real gold medals and then say like, they did this, well, maybe you can do this. And that made a huge impact on me, that they would give of themselves to then lay the foundation for the next group of women coming through.
Cheryl Osteen is in the audience. She's a 1984 Olympic gold medalist. Could you stand? I'm going to embarrass her. I'm sorry. Cheryl was the 7th seat in the 81 boat in the first national championship we won. So I got to follow a great side over there.
So Yaz wasn't able to make it tonight. She was.
So you get me.
She was going to be on our panel tonight, and luckily we had Peg, and Peg was able to jump, which was great. But I wanted to tell you that in our we had a Zoom call about a week ago just to talk about, just kind of see each other's faces and talk a little bit about tonight. And Yaz was there, and one of the things we were talking about, what our first experience was, and Yaz said that her first experience as a walk-on at the University of Wisconsin, she didn't know anything about the sport. She was small. She was
a coxswain.
She was going to be a coxswain. And she said the very first thing they did was get the race out from 1984. So she would have been at Wisconsin, I think, as a freshman in 1985. I think.
That's about right.
It would be
Yeah,
right
she's
in
a little
there.
younger than I am.
They got the film out of that 1984 race and showed it to these young freshmen that had come down to ask about the sport. And she said, from that point forward, I was hooked. So Cheryl, that was what hooked
Yeah, the 84
Yaz
Olympic
in
race.
was that. We missed her tonight. She had a family emergency, and I talked to Rachel, and I hope we can do this again and have Yaz here with these 3 women as well. And because Yaz is just absolutely incredible, so we miss her. Okay, so what I really would like to know from all of you is like your most iconic moment in the sport of rowing. Like if you can go back. Oh, and by the way, these are not scripted questions. They do not know that these questions are coming.
No,
okay?
we have no idea.
So this is all going to be spontaneous, but which is always the best. Okay, so I'm going to go to you, Anna, first on this. So because you have so many, and I think I know what you're going to say, but I may be wrong. Like if you could go back in your rowing career and look back on a moment when, and it may be practice, I don't know. What would be that time when you would say that was maybe the peak of my experience in rowing?
Well, that's a terrible question. Have me go first. Okay. Shoot. Okay, so there's like there's the competitive part of rowing, as we all know. Like you can think of your most iconic race, but then we also have the magic in rowing. So those are 2 completely different takes. And if we have the time, I'll share. My first one would be the magical take that I would say would be I believe it was the end of 2007, maybe 2008, down in San Diego, where the United States would train during the winter time, would go to the Chula Vista Training Center. And we had put our Olympic 8 together, and it was going really well. And it was one of those evenings where, like, the water was nice. Like, it was nice, but not, like, perfect. It wasn't, like, a glassy, but, just a nice little ripple. It's warm. It's California. So you're out there in the rolling hills, just and the sun had gone down, so it was just past dusk. And my coach was keeping us on the water because we were starting to get it. And it was really, we were cooking, and it was kind of floating and bubbling and lovely. And there was a full moon. And so he just kept us out there, and we just kind of kept rowing and kept gliding and kept grooving. And then it was dark, like really dark, but the moon. And we just kept rowing and gliding. And when we came in, he was like, you guys will remember this night. Like, that was really special. And he was right. Like, I still look back to, I would love to get back in that boat at that time. I would like to do that practice again. Maybe it wasn't that hard. Maybe we were just doing steady state or something, which is why I liked it. But, so that's a magical moment of the team and all of the gals working together. That was great.
So, Anna.
Right?
That's perfect. And I just want to, you say that, you describe that. So I actually was able to interview Bob Mock multiple times back in 2002. And one of his...
Who was the coxswain of
yeah,
the
he was the
36
1936
crew.
Coxswain for the Boys in the Boat. And his story was almost identical to that, because it was at night on the Hudson prior to the IRA National Championship. And he described it, he said it was just the sound of the zoop of the blades going in the water, and he said, I just stopped talking, and all you could hear were the blades against the oarlocks, and the blades hitting the water, and the water dripping off, and it was an emotional moment for him. This is when he was in his 80s, and I think exactly the exact same thing. This wasn't like crossing, he didn't say, oh, well, when we crossed the finish line and won the gold medal, not at all. That was his moment. Very similar to yours. Peg?
I remember some great swing moments as well, mostly on Lake Washington on a pretty morning. I remember Bob Ernst stopping us one time and just saying, everybody stop. I think there were 3 boats out. And he said, look around. And it was this gorgeous morning. The mountain was out. It was probably spring. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And he said, take it in, take a deep breath. This is why we row here. Don't tell anyone. So that is in a memory, but actually, I am an intensely competitive person, so my memory is of a race in my junior year. Cheryl may remember this one. Bob Ernst took us from not doing well, hanging in there. The lightweights did pretty well in the 70s, late 70s, but he turned our program around, and we went to San Diego and won, which is the first big race of the spring. We went to San Diego and won, and everybody thought it was a bit of a fluke. And so we came up against Cal, arch nemesis, at the dual race here at opening day. Before it was the Windermere Cup, every other year the opening day race was the Cal dual race. And it was a gorgeous May day. Stunningly beautiful, not rainy at all, gorgeous, gorgeous day. And we were like, okay, we got to show them that this wasn't a fluke. And we came into the cut for us it was the 500-meter left mark. We rode a shorter race then. We came into the cut, and I remember that we couldn't hear our coxswain. There were so many people yelling, and we knew we had 500 meters left, and I'm pretty sure we were neck and neck at the 500. And it was like, okay, burn it out. And you couldn't hear. There were so many people on the cut. The band it was amazing. And I just remember not being able to hear and thinking, I hope we can do the last, the push and get it going. We crossed the line, and the crowd really erupted, and I have never felt so awful in my life as far as everything in my body I thought my eyes were going to pop out of my head because my heart was beating so fast. I thought I was going to cough up a lung. We had never worked so hard, and we got across and won, and it was that combination of feeling like you were going to die and being so excited because we beat Cal at home on a sunny day with a crowd, and it was just fabulous. And I still I have slides in my head of that progression and what it felt like.
Peg?
Yes.
I was there.
Yes, you were.
And so we raced right after.
You
that.
raced right after, yeah.
And that was an absolutely incredible day. I'm not sure that there's ever been a bigger crowd.
It was such an amazing crowd.
Absolutely packed. And that was the race that my six-oar said. I don't always understand what he says, but I always understand what he means. Like, you couldn't hear the coxswain past the 6 seat, I'm sure.
No, and this was before we had
Were you
speakers.
rowing 6?
I was rowing 5. And this was before we had speakers. So there was still a...
Yeah, I had a
think it was
megaphone.
when we
I
had
had
megaphones,
the
so you
megaphone.
really couldn't hear. When
Yeah.
we got speakers, things changed, which was right in that next year. But yeah, no, you couldn't hear a thing, and we came back from neck and neck and just battled them in the sprint. And I don't know what we won by. I don't remember, but we won. And it was just exhilarating, and it's still one of my favorite races. We won 2 national championships after that, and that race is still one of my favorite races.
That is the first year that we won the duel. That the women won the duel.
Oh, yeah, it was the first year the women had won the
First-
duel.
First,
yeah.
First year
for
that the
sure.
women won the Cal duel.
The Cal duel,
Yep.
which is a big deal.
That is a big, big deal. Okay, Melanie, most iconic moment.
So I'm going to put this in context a little bit. Oh yeah, my sister. Let's see, my sophomore year, so you asked for iconic moment, and immediately my mind goes to what was hardest. And for me, I was on the land squad for 5 months my sophomore year. And if you're wondering, what is the land squad? It basically means that you are so bad at your sport that you're basically the spare out of a team of about 85 women who are all much stronger and faster than you. And so the team comes down for practice in the morning, and they all take their boats out, and then the coach pulls you aside and says, oh yeah, Mel, you're gonna do this workout by yourself, and you have to keep going until we come back. That was every day for 5 months, 6 a.m., 6 days a week, and it was the hardest part of my life, I think. But I think to put it in perspective, this was something that the book, The Boys in the Boat, came out my sophomore year. It was almost serendipitous that this book happened to come out when I was going through such a dark phase of my life. Because when you look at the story of the boys, there's a favorite passage that I have, and I hope this is okay. I'm just going to go on a quick tangent.
Yes.
Okay. It's a story of what seasons we have been through. And it's the moment when George Pocock takes a very troubled Joe Rance. I can identify a lot with Joe Rance sometimes, as I'm sure all of us can. And he brought him up to the loft in the old shell house, and he said, Joe, you can see the years in the trees of these cedar trees. You can see the rings of the tree when there's years of hardship, famine, failure, and disease. And those rings are very thin. You can hardly see them, but they're still there. And then you can see years that the tree had tremendous success, prosperity, and fruitfulness, because those rings are much, much thicker. And he said, throughout life, you will experience all of these seasons. And the only constant are your friends, your teammates, your community, the people that, regardless of if you're at the top of a mountaintop or at the very bottom on the land squad and questioning why am I doing this? It was my parents, it was my family that said, you did not come this far to hang up your hat and walk away. You will continue. I'm very thankful for my parents. They said, you're gonna continue and you don't get to quit. So I didn't quit. And then that spring season, I got to be in the 5th varsity 8. There's a lot of varsity 8s. There's I think there were 6. And so I was one from the very bottom of the team. We went down to Sacramento and raced at the WCCs, which is basically you're not good enough to race at NCAAs, so you get to kind of do the runners-up bracket. And we raced Stanford, and it was the same thing that Peg was mentioning. I think all of us can think about a race that we've experienced where it's this out-of-body experience because it's almost like it's not you when you're going up a team and you're racing and it's seat for seat and you're battling for every inch. And we had the 2019 Women's NCAA Championship race that we were, I think, thinking about playing. But it's just like these moments of pure difficulty, hardship, and then you get to the end of it and it's almost like you black out, and then you come out of it and you're like, whoa, that was amazing. And so I think I have these flashbacks, these small little flashbacks of that incredible race, but it really was because of everything that led up to it. And it was every day going down to the boathouse and telling myself, we will not have a fast team unless we push from the bottom up. Unfortunately, I am that bottom. But I have to keep going for my sisters. And it was, the moment that one of them got a rib fracture, I was like, yes! It was cutthroat. And so I finally had an opportunity to prove that I deserved a spot in the boat. And then for the rest of the season, as we all know, you're defending it and saying, I am worthy of this. But the one constant are your teammates.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, do we have that 2019 queued up? Can we show that?
Oh.
All right, so I want to preface this. So this race is one of the most incredible 8s races I've ever seen in my life, and I don't think I'm alone in that.
Right.
This was the 2019 NC2A National Championship. This is the Varsity 8 race. And coming into the last 500 meters, the University of Washington was in 6th place in a 6-boat field. And we had to win that race if we were going to win the team title. We had to win it. And it was coming. As everyone will attest to on this panel, if you're in 6th place with 500 meters to go, it's pretty much over. But boy, those women did not believe that at all. And I will tell you that, like, reaching that 4th dimension, or whatever you want to call it in rowing, and all you people who row know about this. In fact, all you people that read The Boys in the Boat know this. You can reach and you can find something. George Pocock talked about finding that part of you that can make you go that extra, find that extra. And these women found that extra, and it's one of the most incredible things you're going to see. So.
It was an amazing race. I was actually there because SPU had some boats in this race, and the SPU coach, I kept saying, I would like a twofer, please. I would like a twofer. I would like to watch SPU and the University of Washington, Indianapolis. So I flew back and literally changed hats every race. And this was, we were standing on the shore going, oh my God, they're coming back. Look at that. So.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and run that.
I will also say it's harder to stand on the shore.
I think people knew that we weren't expected to win, especially at the Varsity 8, and so it was kind of just like, well, we have literally nothing to lose. We can go out there and we can do whatever we want.
Now it's time to go to the Division 1-1/8 Grand Final.
So I was like I took a deep breath and was just like, I want to enjoy this race. It's my last race with a W on my chest.
All of these crews very tightly packed, not very much of a separation at this point.
We lost to Cal 3 times. We lost to Stanford once. Like, we were not undefeated. And I think with all that, we still were talking about, like, yeah, I think we can win this.
So it is now Michigan still in the lead. Texas is moving. Ohio State, Cal, Stanford. Very, very close for that 3rd position. Washington now is in 6th.
By the way, that's Mary Whipple, who was an Olympic
coxswain. At the halfway mark, and then especially no one plans to go from dead last to first. Like, that just doesn't happen.
Last 38, we're getting in the last 500, and guess what? We got speed up our sleeves! Wow! Wow! Here comes Washington now, moving through Cal. We've got less than 500 meters. Margins are getting tight.
It was just so loud. Marley was screaming. I could hear the Texas coxswain screaming, and I could hear the crowd screaming. And at that point, I was like, "Oh my God!"
Stay with me! Too long! Are you ready?
Nice.
That was awesome.
Yeah, man, that was spectacular. So, not too many times does that happen in rowing. All right, so we've talked about iconic moments. I think one of the parts about any rowing team is the camaraderie that's built among the athletes. And I know at Washington it's really, really strong. We talk about having 4 strong values at Washington and Washington rowing. Hard work starts with hard work, always starts with hard work, team before self. So you have to learn those 2 values, and if you don't, you probably won't last on the team, and that's for our women's team and our men's team. Camaraderie and rowing to win. And what I'd like to talk about with these women is the camaraderie aspect of the sport and what it means to you, how it affected you, and how it affects you today in your life. The idea of sisterhood. Go ahead, Peg.
You know what, I'm gonna kind of go back. I don't think I appreciated the camaraderie until I was out of college for a while. When I started rowing in '79, and we were in a coaching change. So I rowed under the former coach and a novice coach, and then between my sophomore and junior year, Bob Ernst took over the women's program. I didn't know until much later that I had Dick Erickson to thank for that, who was the men's coach, which in the late 70s wasn't a usual thing. Dick went to bat. He basically said, "This is Washington rowing. The men's team wins. We're going to make sure the women's team wins." And he wasn't liking what he was seeing. So he took his freshman men's coach, who had coached Eric and all of my classmates, and said, "We're moving you to the women so that the women can start winning." He had great faith in Bob. And I came into that group not having been on the varsity team. So we were a bit of a motley crew, no pun intended, of some sophomores and some seniors and some folks who had quit and come back because there was a coaching change, because they were dissatisfied and had quit the team and frustrated.
Did they come back in the fall? Was that like a...
Yeah, they came back in the fall. Cheryl nod, yes. Is that, yeah, people came back in the fall because of Bob. So Bob had great coaching experience on national teams, so people knew the reputation. So I kind of came in there going, okay, now I'm on the varsity. What's this mean? And I got a fresh start, which was great for me. I don't know, when you're 19, 20, these guys did the sisterhood, I think, better than we did. We were a bit of a motley crew. And then by the spring, it was like, wow, we're not bad. They're pretty good. This is kind of fun. I like winning. This is good. So I think it came together that way. But frankly, I don't think that we got what we were in. The women of the 70s were abused in so many ways. University of Washington women's rowing really came back. We track it back to like 1903, but there were these huge breaks, and the modern rowing really came back in 1968 with somebody from Mills who said, "I used to row at Mills, can't we have a club sport?" So they did club rowing for quite a while. Jan Harville, our famous, wonderful, successful coach, rowed in those times. It didn't become a varsity sport until 76, and I started school in 78, so started the university. I was quite literally on the wave of Title IX. Cheryl and I both at this age. Title IX passed when I was 12, in middle school. I'd always been a swimmer, an athlete, all these things, and then I got to ride this wave of it coming up, but it wasn't like that. It was like, it was just a little wave, and then it went down and up and down and up. I was telling Eric, a basketball team I played on in high school, we literally had T-shirts that we took and silkscreen numbers on, no name, anything, we just needed the numbers. We had bad workout times, all this stuff. So to have somebody like Bob take over our program and have somebody like Dick say, we need to do this was huge. I don't think it was until later that I looked back and watched the women of the 70s who had really cut a path to make it possible for us. Because we were making it, right? But we still took like vans and a bus to San Francisco. We didn't get to fly.
We didn't either.
The men didn't either. I mean, that was, to be fair. But, I think the point where I really remember coming together and feeling like that sisterhood, sadly, was we lost our stroke, Jane McDougall, about 2 years after we graduated to a tragic accident. And when we all came together for a memorial, I think we all went, oh, we lived through these hard things together. We can live through another hard thing together, losing a teammate. It was a later thing for me, right? At least for me. I think
Dan Brown talks, when I've been up with Dan, because he never rode. Dan never rode, or was a coxswain. He never experienced the sport. But he said, I think what I understand now from rowing is that it's about shared sacrifice. Mm-hmm. That's what creates the bonds and the camaraderie is day in, day out, shared sacrifice. And I thought, man, he's pretty good. He's a pretty good rider too.
And so, for instance, the women that followed us, your entering year at the University of Washington is a real big deal, and it was for Eric, right? He was, did you say 82? Yeah,
82.
So when you entered a class, the class of 82 was a really big deal. It became a big deal for these guys. We were this weird amorphous thing that we didn't have a real starting point.
You were in that change.
We were in this change. So we didn't have this class thing, but man, I think once we finished, it was a little tighter, and it remains so.
Yeah, we're going to do this again, because obviously we can be up here for hours.
Yeah.
We're going to do this again. And have some of the 70s women up here, because what she said about the 70s is absolutely true. You're talking about who are the trailblazers, the ones who had to really fight for it. We're talking about the 70s.
So
we're talking
who's
about
been to the University of Washington Shell House currently? Okay, so you know the balcony that looks over the apron? The women of the 70s had food thrown down on them. Garbage, catcalls, nasty. And they got the worst of the boats. And what did Bob say?
Right. So I was there in that transition as well, and looking at it from the exact opposite, right? The mirror view. And Bob Ernst, when he took over as the women's coach, he came to actually the men's team, and he said, "That's it. This is ending, and I won't tolerate it. So it's going to stop." And I know a couple of guys tried to test that, and it wasn't perfect by any means after that. But Bob Ernst put an end to that. He was the one who really had the most influence on it, and it had to do with Dick. I mean, Dick was also in that same boat. I mean, he was basically said it wouldn't tolerate. But anyways, we got to do another one of these so we can have some of the 70s women up here to tell some of those stories. Yeah. Because I think they also will tell you the story about the shared sacrifice and the camaraderie and the sisterhood that came out of that. In fact, we have a shell. It's going to be dedicated here in about 2 or 3 weeks called the Title IX Sisterhood, and they consistently donate that shell about every 2 years, a new Title IX Sisterhood shell. And it's almost entirely the women of the 70s who went through that and carry that shared sacrifice and that bond, that unbreakable bond. It really, an unbreakable bond. You watch those women together. It's incredible, really amazing. Anna, talk about sisterhood.
I just like listening to you guys talk about the 70s and stuff. Because it's all these things that came before. Like, again, I was born in 1980, and my dad coached like my basketball teams to make sure I got playing time with the little boys, and then there was actual girls team. So it just like, I grew up thinking like, I can do anything I want. I can be a doctor. I'm going to go to the Olympics. Sure, like that was part of my dream from a little girl. Whereas my mother, she didn't have sports unless you wanted to be a cheerleader, and she's like, that's not our thing. So we don't have those genes in our family. However, coming back to just like looking back and looking forward and looking back and looking forward, when I have, I have all my girls in my family right now. On the way here, 2 of them are babysitting the little baby. They're somewhere. And I was like, hey girls, like, what do you guys think about sport? Do you ever think that you shouldn't do sport? And they're like, no, why would we not do sport? I'm like, okay, cool, that's a good start. Okay, so we got that going. I was like, well, what do you like about it? She's like, well, I like that my granddad teaches me how to play basketball. I like that you come cheer for me, and I really like the friends. Okay, so that friendship and that camaraderie, like the fact that my girls and that I grew up with a whole lifetime full of this opportunity to do these things, I think is very beautiful. And right now we're at a time where there's so many kids that aren't getting the opportunity to play sports because they're on screens or just not wanting to go out and do that. So in a way we think like, oh, Title IX is done. Title IX is not done, but it's just, we just have to keep pushing forward. And now, like, what is the power of sport? Why is sport beautiful? Why is it powerful? And one of those pieces is that camaraderie. So anyone can learn to row. What was it earlier this week, the article in the Seattle Times about the Martha's Moms, like how awesome. Like, I'm like, yeah, let's go join the Martha's Moms. Like, let's do this.
They were all in their 70s.
Right. Oh, those women in their 70s, which is like totally not old. It's not old. So that camaraderie piece I've had with my family through sport, and also, you know, my boatmates, still keeping in touch. But even for me, it's more of a lifetime thing. I married into a rowing family. Like I mentioned, my husband was a rower, and Bob
Also
Ernst was his coach.
Were you going to mention that he's a world champion
he
as
also
well?
is a world champion.
Yes.
So, sorry, my kids have serious pressure problems. But we see the rowing as kind of an extension of our family. Bob Ernst has even become, he plays a role in my husband's life almost as a fatherly figure. Yes. You know, the role that coaches play, and an encourager and a support in that, still in our lives to this day. And I have that with my teammates and my coaches. So I feel very, very blessed to have had those things continue on, which I think is a beautiful way. When rowing is done right, it really is that community that hopefully there shouldn't be brokenness or leaving clubs or leaving teams or whatnot. It's a beautiful thing when we all come together and then we become something bigger than ourselves. My very favorite quote that has guided me through a lot of rowing is Helen Keller, and she says, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. And from someone who couldn't see, you know, she really saw the power of people coming together. And so, yeah, that doesn't really answer it succinctly, but
I love that.
I'm going to go top level there.
Melanie, talk about your experience with that. You come from a different place on that, so go ahead.
Very different. I would say for me, when we think about the camaraderie of our team, and I just want to say, we talk a lot about Bob Ernst, and it's all three of us have been coached by him. Am I right in saying that?
Anna actually was Jan Harville.
Jan Harville was my coach, but she and Bob would go on a daily run.
Yep.
And
so yes,
they would run every day together. And it was almost like the women's team and the men's team during my time at Washington. I graduated in 2002. It was like we were one program. Mm-hmm. And we would do race pieces against each other and try to beat the guys. Girls were in fours, of course. No, the guys were in fours. We were in 8. And we'd try to beat them. And it was like we were one program. So, and I was surprised coming in because I still had a little bit of that, like, be careful of, oh, can women do this? The men's team must not like us. And then the biggest fan for my team was the men's coach. I was like, oh shoot, I'm like put in my place. Like, okay, got it. Okay, so this place is different. It's all together. It's all one thing. Mm-hmm. So,
Melanie, go ahead.
I would say for me, I came into the program and I entered in a very different time. I think all of my teammates, 30% of them were internationally recruited. And so suddenly this caliber and this expectation was really, really high in terms of what you were to
You'd
achieve.
been a high school rower.
Oh, yeah. I was
we weren't.
in the varsity 8,
Right.
at Sammamish, and I was like, I'm good. And then I got to UW, and I met my teammates who were Olympians, and I was, as I said, very humbled very quickly. But I think that, to Peg's point earlier, it was after college that I realized just what I'd been part of. And watching that video of the 2019 championship, I get emotional. Anyone else? Like, it is such a powerful...
I can't watch it.
Right. I'm like, I get choked up.
Yep.
Because I think that is humanity in our essence. That is the unifier of sport and what we're capable of when we do shared sacrifice. And it is very rare to find opportunities when you can push yourself to the depths of your being and watch your own teammates beside you also struggle and face their own difficulties, and you look at each other square in the face and you say, but I'm doing this for you. And don't let me down. And I had one race where we lost. I forget who we lost to. We got second on our home turf. And I had one of my teammates turn around. She was in front of me in the boat, and she's like, I felt like I gave it 80%. And I'm like, are you serious? That was the one time I'm like, I never want to relive that in my life, because it's this moment of I'm giving the entirety of my being and my essence for my team, and I expect them to do the exact same. And when we think about camaraderie, it's interesting because it was such a cutthroat culture when I was part of the team that, I think all of us have experienced that level of competition when you are putting, targets on your teammates' back and saying, I have to beat this person so I get into a better boat. And then you get out of college, and it takes a few years to realize how truly special it was to go through something so challenging. And most of my teammates moved back to their homes, which were not Seattle. A lot of them moved back overseas because they couldn't stay here on visas for work. And so suddenly it became, well, what is the meaning of team if they're no longer with me? And I think that it shows that the camaraderie shows up time and time again when we're brought back together. And it's not just of my class, it's of seeing Peg's class and Anna's class and all of our friends in the audience tonight that have also experienced that. And I go to our alumni brunches, and it might not be me with my teammates, but I'm seeing the 70s women, I'm seeing the women from the early 2000s that have fought hard so that I could be in a place where I didn't know any different, and that I showed up and I said, well, let's see what we got and what I'm capable of. So I just want to say thank you, because there's a deep, deep level of gratitude ingrained in my being for all of the women that came before me, because I'm your legacy. Truly. And I wouldn't be here today and have the stories and the opportunities that I did had it not been for many, many courageous women that came long before me.
Hey.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so we're at the 8 o'clock mark here, and we want to make sure that we do have time to take some questions from the audience. That went by really, really fast. So
I hope for you too. We can talk all the time.
So I would like to take questions, and then at the very end, I would like Anna to describe the 2008 Olympic race, because I think I'd like to do it in concert with the 1936 race and what Bob Mock told me about that race. So I think it'll be very, very interesting to hear that. So, but let's take your questions first, and then we'll finish tonight with that, okay? So go ahead, any questions?
There's a microphone over there, by the way, and there.
Raise your hand and we'll come to you with a microphone.
Oh, good, no questions. No.
Okay, well then I'm going to keep going. I have so many questions. I have so many questions. You think of your questions, okay? We're going to keep going. Okay, so I would like you to describe, so one of the things that was really incredible about talking with Bob Mock was to get him to describe that Olympic race. I mean, that thing went out the window in the first 3 strokes. Like, they did not wrote a plan. In fact, let me ask you this. In fact, I'm going to ask this, all 3 of you. This is a fairly simple answer. What percentage of the races that you were in went to plan? Peg.
Oh, most.
So over 50%.
Yeah. I mean, Bob.
Wow, you were not a coxswain.
No. You'd have to have Lisa Horn here to tell you the truth.
Okay, all right.
I'm probably not good truth teller. I'm looking
70%.
at Cheryl. Yeah, I mean, 70%. I think we had some very good years.
Okay, all right, we'll say 70%.
So
Melanie?
we led from the beginning a lot.
Okay, all right. Man, that's got to be a great feeling. Okay, Melanie.
very
percentage.
few, and people are always asking, "Did you feel the swing at the NCAA championships?" And it's like, no, never.
Not in a race.
The nerves are too high. No.
It's hard to feel.
I'll tell you, I actually did feel a swing in a warm-up once.
Well, that's
Yeah, I was
impressive.
going to say,
Yeah.
you don't. There's just too many nerves in races to really feel. I don't know. You rated an
Feels like
Olympic boat.
once, Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, Anna, how many percentage?
I would say most of them went to plan
Okay, all right, nice job.
until
He's
they
not
went
a
to plan B.
coxswain.
Okay, so
Just a moment, we're coming to you with a microphone.
Yeah. Coxswains
Okay,
feel
go ahead.
differently.
Yes, Todd, go ahead.
Do I really need
Coxswains
a?
see
Yeah, I probably
things.
need a microphone. Eric, of course, is a coxswain, and for all the years I rode, I understand that the coxswains gathered with the coaches and they talked about strategy and all sorts of things. I don't remember that any of the rest of us ever were privy to a plan or would be aware of whether it went according to a plan or not.
That's
We
great.
just rode our asses off as best we could and tried to respond to the coxswains yelling at us, and that was rowing.
Yeah.
Am I
think
wrong?
Okay,
We
so
might have
my
known a
question is, am I
plan.
wrong?
Like,
No, you're not.
I would say we might have known a plan. Our start is 25 strokes. We're settling to a 34 strokes a minute, whatever it was, 36. I don't know. And you're going to take a power 10 in the middle, and you're going to sprint. That's the rower's plan.
Okay.
I kind of know how many strokes
All
I'm
right, well,
taking
here's
at the
the truth.
beginning.
Here's
and
the
then
actual answer to the question. 30% of races go to plan. Okay, that's from a coxswain's perspective. 30% go to plan.
Very
Okay,
true.
Bob Mock in the 1936 Olympics, if he was sitting here next to me, he would tell me that plan went out the window in the first two strokes because they missed the start. They were in the worst lane. They were down by half a length in the first 10 strokes. Like that's when the plan goes out the window and you start going to the George Pocock quote about how there's no timeouts in rowing. There's no chance for the coach to then, to make a call to the
Regroup.
coxswain and say, hey, do this, do that. It's completely up to the coxswain to adjust the race plan to try to get the team back into a place where they can contend.
the 2019 race that you just watched did not go to plan.
That was definitely.
And even the
if
rowers
I had
knew it
Marley
then.
sitting next to me,
Yeah.
she would say that did not
The-
go to plan.
the
not
rowers
remotely.
would have said
All
that
right,
too.
so that was my first question. Now my next question is, can you describe for us the 2008 Olympic race?
So in 2008, I was in the U.S. Women's 8, and we had won a silver medal in 2004. Oh, can you guys hear me? No.
Oh.
I didn't. I'll get closer.
There you go.
Let's tell this story. Okay, so in 2004, we won the silver medal in Athens. It was the first medal for the U.S. in 20 years since that 1984 medal I had held that inspired me, right? And then so I spent another 4 years training full-time. At this point, the U.S. women's team was built of women from all different universities coming together in a camp, pick the best 9, and that's your boat. And this group of 9 women that was in that 8 in Beijing going, ready to race and hopefully redeem ourselves over the Romanians, like, we were tight and we were good and we had been through a lot. And I knew I was fully prepared at the start line. You know how you can know a race where, like, I've done the work, I'm ready, I'm in a good space, I'm strong, like, I am ready, like, right now. And so when our coach always told us, like, look right, there's Australia or whoever was there, look left, okay, Romania, I can't remember, I feel like I should watch the video or something. But there they all were, and then you get back in your lane, and you're just gonna do you. And the boats have a boot now that, goes over the top so you can't false start, and it's a stoplight system. So it's like beep, 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 and then you're like trained, you're like Pavlov's dogs. And I heard Mary Whipple calling that race that we just watched of the women. She was the announcer, but I hear her voice and I'm like, because Mary Whipple was my coxswain at the University of Washington all through the U.S. team. She's my one and only coxswain. I will just go when she says to go. So as we took off, it was good, like from the first stroke. So I guess we're the opposite of the boys in the boat. Like, we own this race off of the first stroke, and it was like boom, 3/4, boom, half, 3/4, lengthen,
By the way, that's a
stride,
start.
and we're like we are just going to haul. And we were up, and then we were up by more, and then we were up by more. And I love when Mary would say things like, we are pushing the world, you know? And she was like holding us back for the first 1,000 meters, like, oh, just write it. Like, we're doing this. And it was like, okay, you know, we got this. And it was fun.
1,000 meters.
That race was fun. Like,
okay,
it felt good
meters.
and it was fun.
And where were you?
And now we're at the 1,000, and I think we're up by, I don't know, maybe a half a vote or something,
okay,
which is plenty enough. But then we hit that third 500, and in 2004, Romania had walked on us. So we had set the world record in the semi or whatever, and they had won all the Olympics before, and then in our silver medal race, they just walked through us that third 500. So we had practiced for 4 years. No one walks on the United States in the third 500. Now, we didn't always get that, but it took us 4 years to get it right. So that third 500, we didn't increase our lead, but we held. So like nobody could walk back on us, and I could hear the Romanian coach, he has a whistle. It's like, whoot, whoot. All right, I have it here again. And so I could hear him calling, and that's his call to his team to go. And I remember being like, like, this one's ours. And so we were able to hold. Therefore, that last 500, like, we were a very good sprinting team. So then we could open up, and they couldn't come back. And the Netherlands, excellent sprinters in the Netherlands, and they were able to, I believe, take off Canada, but they couldn't catch us. And so we just got to just hold on to the line. And that race to me felt so good. And I'm so happy that was my last race because it felt so good. So that's how that one went down.
Was he on a... Was
getting
he,
chills.
yeah, nice.
Sure. He's on a bike on the shore, probably.
Okay, was the coach was with the whistle or the coxswain?
I think the Romanian coach.
Was he on a bike?
Well, because they ride little bicycles.
Yeah.
All along the side of the, I mean.
So they
like
do. They
Roman
ride a
culture.
bike next to the...
Ride a bike
there's
to
a lane
follow along.
On the
for
international.
And the
2,000
coaches
meter.
are all on their bikes, and
Yeah,
they like follow the race.
They actually crash. They crash
They
into
do
each
crash
other
sometimes.
because
Yeah.
they're not looking where they're going. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So he had a whistle. He was.
I
he
think
was
so.
Actually,
I mean, maybe it was somebody calling their dog. I don't know, but I thought it was them. And it's like,
But even in Pavlovian tradition, you were like...
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, that was my experience with that race. So I believe Karen Davies, who was our stroke, she looks like she just about passes out at the finish. So I think she was having a different experience, but I was having a great race.
That's so awesome. Wow. Okay, that's fantastic. Like a race that goes to plan. Yeah. So the boys in the boat race, the 1936 race, did not go to plan. They were behind by 4 seats off the start. They were behind by a length at 1,000 meters. They did have for those of you who've read the book and seen the movie, you know the movie completely exaggerates how far behind they were. They were not behind by, I don't know what,
Don't come back from that.
50 lengths or whatever they had in that thing.
And it wasn't a photo
they were
finish.
behind by a length, maybe a little bit more, and but that was not where they wanted to be. But keep in mind that boat with Don Hume as the stroke and the strength of that crew, they knew they could come back in the sprint, and Don Hume knew that too. So this idea that Don Hume was about to pass out, not true. Don Hume used to make fun of that. It was pretty funny. Not true. But he did kick it into gear in the last 300 meters, and that was the reason why they went through everybody in the last 200 meters. And they really did go back probably about 6 seats in the last, so very similar to that 2019 race. And that's one of the reasons why that 2019 race is so emotional for me to watch, is because you're watching our women do almost exactly the same thing that the boys in the boat did in 1936. And it's so uncommon. It's just such an uncommon thing to win a race from that far back. And so the parallels there are very, very similar. Okay, do we have any questions? Because I'm going to keep going here until 8:30 because I have more questions for them. But does anybody have a question?
If you, we'll be behind you. So
yes, Judy.
Judy.
If you could please wait for
Hang
the
on
mic.
for just a second.
Can you introduce yourself?
What?
Can you please introduce
yourself?
Judy Rance Willman. My dad was Joe Rance.
Yay!
Yay!
And I was involved in the book.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But I'm not exactly sure how to ask this or whether you know. But everything that, I mean, everything that I had been associated throughout the writing of the book and so forth with Bob Ernst, And everything that I hear, people really respect him and they really enjoyed having him as a coach. And then all of a sudden, he's gone. And it bothers me. I don't understand what happened. And I don't know whether any of you do or not.
I'll answer that.
Yeah,
I'll answer.
Eric's probably the closest to.
Yeah, mistakes were made. Mistakes were made by a lot of people in that. And there are a lot of us that are behind the scenes. I have nominated him for the Hall of Fame for the last 3 sessions, so 3 terms, so that's in the last 6 years. My last letter was, I was adamant about it, and he still did not make it in. So, but my understanding is that they are working on doing that. I don't fully understand why, but it's not. There's not anything that I'm going to be able to do about it. But what we can do about it is do what we're doing tonight and talk about him and talk about the reality of his influence and impact on Washington rowing. What happened in 2015 was very unfortunate, but there's time for healing, and I think that what we're looking at here is the time that we need to take for the healing to happen and then to come back and recognize him. Because as you hear from these 3 women here, they have nothing but the highest respect for him, and I know I do too. So Judy, we're just going to keep our fingers crossed and keep moving in the right direction there and see what we can do. Yeah, I mean, Bob had a huge influence on my life. I mean, he was my freshman coach and changed me. Like he is probably the one who's had the most influence on who I became in my life later. Changed me from a person that didn't have confidence. I mean, my story is similar to these stories. I came into Washington. I was on the Green Lake crew. I was at Green Lake, and I was intimidated. I really didn't want to come compete at Washington because I knew that the competition would be so strong. And it was a fraternity brother of mine that talked me into coming down. And I said I'll go down with you, but I'm not going to stay. And I came down, and the rest is, obviously history. But it was Bob Ernst that changed me from that person who didn't have the confidence to be there to a person who did. So I owe him a lot. Okay, I would like to ask, are there any, yeah, go ahead. Oh, great, we have questions.
It's simple, is it on? Simple question. Where's the photo from that's on the cover right there on the screen?
The photo? Okay, so this is basically kind of a promotional photo shoot thing that they did in about 1930. I don't know the entire story here about this. Mohai has this photo, and so they've used it a lot. Those are not, we did not have a women's team at that time. That's from about 1930. That's Curly Harris. I recognize him. That's who was a massively influential person for the Washington rowing team. He's the one who got the shell house that we have today. That footprint, the original shell house that was there, that was built because Curly Harris was the executive director of the Alumni Association and camped out in Olympia to get the funding to build that shell house after the 1948 four won the gold medal in London. So he took that momentum and said, we're going to do this, camped out in Olympia, and got the money to build that shell house, the shell house that we rode out of. So that's Curly Harris. He was coxswain, and classic coxswain, right? Just full of energy, full of charisma, the classic guy. And so there he is with a bunch of co-eds. But this was some kind of a promotional thing of some kind. I don't know the story behind it, but we did not have women's rowing at the time, and these women did not row at Washington. I mean,
and wasn't this one you just said that they were taken out in a bigger boat?
Yeah, then they went out. Then the next photo is of them in like a big, like a
dory. A dory. It's a big long dory.
Yeah.
With oars on each side.
Yeah, and they look like an octopus.
It looked like a galleon
because like the oars are all going in at different times, and then you have the men's 8 going by them at the same time. So it was weird. Some kind of, some kind of a
upstairs, there are some like 1900s pictures of the women on the walls that were real rowers in the early, from like 03 to 10, and then there was a break.
Yeah, so
those are great.
so it'd be great to have Ellen Ernst on one of these, because Ellen is the one who wrote the history from 1903 to 1910 and 1911 to 1919. Because of what happened to Bob, she kind of like moved away from the program a little bit. I need to get her back. But if you go to the Washington Rowing History, you can read what she wrote about it. I know a lot about it, but it's based on mostly on her research and what she did. The reality is that Hiram Conaber, when he came here, so we can talk for hours about Hiram Conaber, but the reason we're in this room together tonight is because of Hiram Conaber. He's the founder of the program. The Conaber Shell House is named after him. But he, in 1907, came and said, I want to have women's rowing here, and he was immediately fought by the administration. And he fought back, and he ultimately was fired, and then a couple of the guys went and got his job back. And we had women's rowing here. Lucy Pocock, George Pocock's sister, was one of the coaches here. And it was a real program. We had, at the heyday, about 10% of the population of the women on campus were down at the crew house rowing 2 or 3 days a week.
And I just want to mention, this is something I always say on my tours. Absolutely. That in 1909, there were more women that tried out for rowing at the University of Washington than men.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
There were exercise requirements at the university.
Yeah,
that was part of it,
right.
too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you think about the University of Washington and having women on campus, just the fact we had women on campus in 1909. Yale didn't have women on campus until 1969. Harvard didn't start admitting women to Harvard until 1962. Princeton's the same way. I mean, so like this idea that out here on the West Coast, where it was frontier land, and we had a much higher value of women than they did on the East Coast. And it's a wonderful testament to the community and the frontier aspect of and society that we had out here in Seattle. And certainly a testament to Hiram Conaber, who didn't just encourage women to row, but fought for them to row. There were 2 programs in the United States that had women's rowing in 1907, the University of Washington and Wellesley. 2, okay? Cal did not, Stanford did not, Harvard did not. Obviously, they didn't have women. That women's program at Washington really is historical. Do you want to see that?
I think
We've got a
Rachel
few
has
more questions. We probably have time for 2 more questions. I saw a hand right there.
There's one back there and one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe 3 more questions.
Sure, we will do that.
That's impossible.
Hi, my name's Olivia. I'm a novice rower in high school. And Thank you. I was just wondering if you had like any advice or like stories from your beginning years of rowing, just for like people just getting into it.
Take care of your hands. I used to pick at calluses when I was sitting in class, and then I would regret it later because it hurt. So just take care of your hands. Seriously, I mean, take care of your hands.
I would say treasure every moment because it goes too fast.
I think it'll probably feel really slow.
Yeah.
So just take one day at a time, and don't miss the day that they teach you how to feather, because that's an important day. Otherwise, you're really tight on your inside arm if you miss that day. So relax, and then it's push with your legs, then open up after that. So if you can push with your legs first instead of opening, then you're gonna be a better rower than if you don't. But that took me like 10 years to figure that part out. So legs first.
And I would say the other thing that Eric mentioned, if you can, in your life in general, but as a rower, really adopt the community, that I'm a part of a team, because you compete against people. I mean, I needed to get my seat, right? But it's a team, and you need to be humble, put other people's first. I think it takes us a while to learn that sometimes.
Okay, here's my advice. Grit and determination.
Yeah.
Grit and determination.
Which odds are, if you are trying rowing, you already have that.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Right.
I also want to say that know that every day that you're pulling an oar, you have a whole community of women that are cheering you on.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. There was one or 2 others. There's somebody over on the audio side.
Hi.
Oh, it's okay.
Actually, to piggyback on that question, I'm curious when you think about the history of rowing and
I mean, when you just consider the history that's in this room, it's really powerful, but also, what are our hopes and dreams as we're going through? I started rowing at 43. My 9-year-old is like, ooh, I want to row. But what are we hoping for, especially considering the lack of diversity in this room, perhaps, and considering, what we want to bring to Seattle and to the world in terms of women's rowing? There is a lot of diversity in the room, but there's also a lot, there's a lot more that could happen. So yes, sorry to put it in the negative.
So to rephrase the question, I kind of heard two pieces there. One is that the fact that our sport of rowing is very white. It just and I think a lot of that stems down to the fact that people need to be able to swim in order to then do rowing. And so the George Pocock Foundation and the Road to the Future program is the very, very best and has made such huge inroads in that. And I'm not sure if you're aware of that program and the great strides that they're making, but that's where it's at. Erg Ed, going to all the communities and bringing the rowers out for everyone. And then I think it's going to be a long road because, again, it comes down to dollars that provide the swim lessons and get the things to the people so that the kids are going to go out and have the opportunity. But it's slow, but I think it'll come. The second part of the question that I heard was how people can really start rowing at any age. And I think that rowing for women is about to get a huge push as more and more women retire and maybe have a little bit more time on their hands. In my profession, we have part of our office is the 100-year lifestyle. And people are living longer and longer. And so we want to be fit and healthy and enjoy being 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 and rowing a boat just for the love of being able to use our bodies. And so I do think that there will be a lot more people learning how to row in the Masters. And I'm excited to see what that looks like. And so hopefully we can get more people rowing of all ages and of all diversities. I think it would be just a beautiful thing.
Jen Gibbons is here tonight of PRC. In fact, I see a lot of PRC people here tonight, and they really have been at the forefront, the vanguard of working with inner city youth and trying to bring this sport to as many young people as we possibly can. It requires funding. In fact, I was just talking to Brooks about this tonight. There are multiple organizations out there making an effort to do this, and it comes in kind of fits and spurts, and we have it, and we're moving forward. It's something that in the rowing community is a high priority, and I just want to give credit to Jen and the PRC for really being in the forefront, the spearhead of making that happen.
I would just add one more thing. If you are not, sadly, a Husky, a graduate of University of Washington, if you are connected in any way to another university that has a rowing program, the women's rowing programs in this country have so much more parity now. There were, 8 to 10 crews that really competed when I was competing. So again, 40 years ago. But now D1 rowing programs are huge. Texas won again. Who thought Texas? Who Texas? They don't have water? Come on. I'm only kidding. so just cheesing. But there are so many more rowing programs. So many more rowing programs. When you support rowing programs at the high school level and at the university level, give specifically, and you're going to allow more people to row at colleges, et cetera. I mean, we have a D2 program, SPU, our coach is here tonight, a D2 program with a couple, three young African-American women who I don't think had ever rowed. So some of those programs are really making a difference too. So use your dollars in places where you can, and it can just be a small amount. It makes a big difference. I think there was one more question over there.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to ask, on the theme of the history of women's rowing in Seattle, I think of Lucy Pocock as being, the big pioneer. So I was just curious the extent to which you all in your rowing experience, does she come up? Did the coaches talk about her? Is she acknowledged?
I didn't know anything about Lucy Pocock until I was well out of college. But the history of the men's program was much more emphasized when I was in school. but there just wasn't a lot to look back at.
So it's interesting you say that, because I did not have a sense of the history of the program at all. None. And it was part of the reason why I wrote it. Was because I felt like we really were missing the connection to a past that I sensed was really important. And so that was the reason why and then the women's program, the women's history, like I said, Title IX was coming up, the 50th anniversary was coming up, and I just looked at it and I said to my wife, this is a command performance. We have to get this done. And so now that we've got, like I said, there's people in this audience that you're going to hear their voices on that website here within a year or two, so that we can get these voices together and start talking about it. But we've been late to the game on getting the women's history up there, and it's a credit to, again, back to Museum of History and Industry for having this tonight, and being able to see all these faces out here tonight who are interested in this. And we have a groundswell. We have people that are really interested in this now, and it's such an important part. History is so important. Again, shout out to MoHi for being the physical presence for history here in the city of Seattle, because history is so important, and it's important to us as a rowing community to really embrace that part of who we are and who we were and who we have become, because it's, especially on the women's side, what the women went through both back in that time, 1910 and 1912, and had their program cut, and then they came back, and the men and the women that fought for it, including Lucy Pocock, including George Pocock, including Dick Pocock, and then to have that same thing happen as we entered into the 60s, and you had these women like Joan Bird, who were fighting for it, and then the 70s women who now come back and celebrate with the Title IX sisterhood shell like it's a dream. All of it, it's like a dream, but it's a good dream, and we've got a good thing going. We really
got
do.
one more, I think.
Yes, we've got one more question.
My name is Jen Gibbons. I'm the executive director of the George Pocock Rowing Foundation.
Yay, Jen!
It is so fun to hear other people share what our organization does in your own words, because I'm just so proud right now. I don't feel the need to come up and make a plug because you're all crushing it. But Lucy Pocock, I do want to let you know, we created a couple years ago a camp in honor of her. So it's called Camp Lucy. It's a 10 free-day camp, and it primarily reaches girls of color throughout the city. So it's at Mount Baker, at Renton, at the Pocock Rowing Center. And it's 100% fueled by donations. So I would be remiss if I didn't stand up and share that and share appreciation for everyone who's been naming what it is that we do. And we've been around for 40 years and hope to be continuing doing this work for another 40 years. So honored to be a part of the community, and thank you so much for this evening.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jen.
Outstanding. Okay. Really, thank you
you
for coming tonight. This is going to be a wrap for us. I think we're going to hang around. I know Anna's got 7 kids, so she may not. But I will be here for another half hour till 9 o'clock, so please feel free to come up and ask any questions. And thank you again for coming, and thank you again to MoHi.
Yes. Thank you. And let's get a big round of applause for Eric and all of our speakers. Thank you. We really appreciate you coming.